Hey folks, this is LJ, your opinionated host for the Opine Motel podcast. Hope you're well. Let's get into it. How to be more assertive, confident in the workplace. Episode 3.0. Welcome back, folks. We're still in the coronavirus. This is episode 3.0. A slight change to our previously mentioned programming on activities to make you smile. This topic I thought about doing a few weeks ago. However, as a lot of you are coming out of your full lockdown, this kind of seemed a little self-indulgent. So I had a listener ping me a wonderful question that got me thinking on how to help, given a good proportion of you are going back into the workplace. Hence our topic today. So we all have had, at one time or another, experienced bosses, colleagues, and clients that were good, bad, indifferent, and range from full-on little dictators all the way through to those that were lasse, faire, didn't seem to give two hoots to what you were doing, except when it came to looking good in front of their respective higher-ups. Today, I wish to explore how to be more assertive and confident in the workplace. And like the last pod, I aim to give you a brief outline on 1. Why care? 2. What is it? 3. How can it affect your life? 4. Who can benefit? And 5. Tips and tricks to help you achieve being more assertive and confident at work and to gain better outcomes as a result. On a personal note, as a consultant, I have been into hundreds of different businesses within varying industries and that have had unique issues and complaints. A peek behind the curtain shows that whether they be from a company generally wishing to increase their bottom line, helping the negotiating team with a merger and acquisition, presenting a project to a client, dealing with failing units within a business, strategic issues around launching new products, services, or assessing personnel for their suitability in their current role or even to stay within an organization. There is one thread that runs through all of them and affects the resulting outcome, and that is the human factor. And on a more granular level, relationships and their corresponding power struggles and competing needs and wants. If you Google how to be more assertive in the workplace, in 0.48 seconds you will get back 16,400,000 results. Not an insignificant number, and one that surely speaks to this being a concern of a lot of people. The single most identifiable issue that most staff speak to me off the record is about how to convey their wonderful idea or being listened to, or just saying no to a colleague, manager, or client without feeling like the world is about to cave in. Helping to change this feeling is becoming more assertive. Understanding that your view is valid and it can be voiced, and in the end, it will help yourself and your company. Number 1, why care? So being too submissive or passive can lead to a more unhappy workplace environment where you feel like you're always at the beck and call of others. If you've ever had this thought as a person is walking away or rattling around your mind in the rest of the day, it goes something like this. What I should have said is, and this is where you insert your well thought out and well presented point or argument. So it's natural to go back in our own minds and fantasize of becoming the heroes of our own story, saying with amazing confidence the perfect turn of phrase that would floor the audience and get them instantly to see our point of view. But you didn't, and now your monkey mind, see my last pod 2.0, is having a field day. Therefore, unless you like being the company doormat and not having any say on how you function, allocate your time, or have agency, at the one place you might spend a majority of your day, fostering a certain amount of assertiveness is needed for balance. Look, we all want to get what we want within reason. So why not take the first step to achieve this goal? Keep listening. I'm going to share some of my thoughts on doing just that. Number 2, what is it? Well, the dictionary definition is expressing opinions or desires strongly and with confidence so people take notice. A more expansive definition given in psychology today is that assertiveness is a social skill that relies heavily on effective communication while simultaneously respecting the thoughts and wishes of others. People who are assertive clearly and respectfully communicate their wants, needs, positions, and boundaries to others. There is no question of where they stand, no matter what the topic. Individuals who are high in assertiveness don't shy away from defending their points of view or goals, or from trying to influence others to see their side. They are open to compliments and constructive criticism. People can improve their assertiveness through practical exercises and experience. Researchers Ames and Flynn in 2007 found that assertive behaviors can be multifaceted, both proactive or reactive, as well as verbal or nonverbal. Therefore, one can assert themselves in many ways. So the next time you are walking through the office or even speaking to your manager at your desk, how you carry yourself, your body language, and facial expressions lends others to view and react with you differently, as much as to what you say. It should be mentioned what it is not, and that is aggressive. Look, the definition for aggression in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is a forceful action or procedure, such as an unprovoked attack, especially when intended to dominate or master. It's also hostile, injurious, or destructive behavior or an outlook, especially when caused by frustration. Aggression is often the expression of pent-up rage. Assertiveness is not the act of being hostile, aggressive, or demanding to get what you want. Best put by Richard and Verhage in 1987 is that assertiveness involves standing up for one's rights without infringing on those of others, whereas aggression involves those of obnoxious stimuli to maintain rights. So now we have the general lay of the land. Let's explore this further. Number 3. How can it affect your life? So many of us seek to be liked by others. It's human nature to want to belong and to be welcomed by the tribe. Long ago, those who were not welcomed were banished and often perish. So it's perhaps not surprising that we often strive to be agreeable. Research has shown that a lack of assertiveness, given a more agreeable nature, which is a desirable trait when in balance, once it becomes maladaptive, prone to predominantly giving your thoughts, wants, needs, and power away too often, can lead to severe feedback loops, leading to general unhappiness, all the way through to more serious anxiety and depression. Often, the inhibitor to being more assertive is the imposter syndrome, defining yourself by who you think you should be. We have all experienced this to one extent or another. The expectations that others have placed on you, judging your talents and skills that you secretly feel that you don't really have, especially when asking for what you want. Study after study has shown a positive correlation between those that are assertive and an upward career progression in the workplace. Inversely, those of a more agreeable and submissive persuasion have a negative correlation on moving up the ladder, being trusted with more responsibility, regardless of how skilled they might be. To the point that even though aggressive personalities might lose their jobs more often, their careers progress further over the long haul. Talk about getting the short end of the stick. Learning to be more assertive can help alleviate such negative outcomes as we give voice to our needs and reduce that inner turmoil once the outcomes we imagined are not realized. 4. Who can benefit? While I will focus on work due to the specific question that was asked of me, I'm sure that you can see how most of the ideas of assertiveness already mentioned here have a transferability to those of your friends and family too. Being more assertive at work, looking at a snapshot, like on a personal level, you have better job progression, better job satisfaction, happier teams, happier you, and most importantly for that inner ego, you have been true to yourself by vocalizing and showing your value and defining what you want, no matter if the outcome was in your favor. On a company level, companies that do have staff that are more assertive across the board do better on various performance markers: income generation, departmental functioning, intra and inter-team coordination, transparency, company culture, happiness of employees, and thereby employee retention. I encourage you to see the book Principles by Ray Dalio and the ideas of radical transparency for a true example of how, when every employee from the top down is radically assertive and transparent in their communication, it drives success. From my own experience, companies that are fickle in ensuring top talent is nurtured and happy in their company find that they spend a lot of time with recruiters trying to replace the irreplaceable again and again and again. Therefore, it's a win-win for both of you and the companies you inhabit. It's more like, why wouldn't you want to be more assertive at work? And that is borne out by how often we search for a means to become just so. Let's now explore how to get better. 5. Tips and tricks. As a caveat, this is neither a fully exhaustive nor all-encompassing comprehensive list bar none, but one I think you will gain benefits from practicing, experimenting, and tucking a few of these ideas away in your mind for the next time an opportunity arises in work to put forward your newly learned assertiveness. The science of assertiveness is an art, and careful negotiation on when best to use your newfound tool is going to take some time as well. Trial and error, and fumbles and stumbles. The key is to be consistent to oneself, so enough prevaricating. In summary, there are 7 areas to focus on. Number 1 is to know what you want. 2 is impressions. 3, give a reason. 4, mindset. 5, communication jujitsu. 6, social interactions. And 7, practice makes perfect. So let's go through them. So number 1, know what you want. You have your own voice. Value yourself and your opinion. Speak your own truth. No apologies, no excuses, no bluffing, or trying too hard to please anyone. No hedging. That is language that sounds like sort of, kind of, technically. Simply say what you think, mean what you say, and put your words into action. Be genuine. Lead with your feet pointed forward, not half-turned ready to retreat. You'll be amazed how people respond constructively, critiquing, and follow up with you once they understand clearly your position and what you want. Show humility and understanding that not every idea and action is worthy of note or a Newton-worthy gem that should be sung for all the ages. Be sparing with your assertiveness. Understand that there are times to concede and other times to stand firm. Start to gain perspective that it is reserved to things that you really want and protect resources that are dear to you, like time. If you are too assertive for every item in your life, it becomes wearing on others, and to some, watered down to the point of dismissal. Oh, there he or she goes again. Let them have their say, then disregard or just say no. Therefore, you're no better off. For example, it would be important to be assertive when asking for vacation time or a raise, but it's not necessarily important to be assertive when someone is picking where to eat lunch. Remember, this is a starting point. You need to balance your wants and needs with the rights of others. Like we stated previously, assertiveness isn't always about getting what you want. 2. First impressions. Speak clearly and audibly. Make eye contact. Act as though you expect cooperation from them. That agreeable nature of yours and the fear of sounding too forceful may try to steer you to a more casual approach, but you need to resist that urge. The same way you'd have to if you were meeting new people. It's important to project the expectation that your request will be taken seriously, and that display of confidence can boost the chances that it actually will be. Know your boundaries. Really consider them deeply. Understand them when dealing with an issue, where there is flex in them and the red lines that shall not be crossed. Understand that everyone has them and will defend theirs, so ensure that you are respectful to yourself and man those ramparts. Understand each interaction with work colleagues can be a new first impression. In that, yes, the first time they met you, they create a heuristic outline of you, essentially a stereotypical archetype that they can categorize you in neatly in their minds based on a rough sketch on that first meet. However, this is not fixed, and each time you start using your newfound assertiveness, it flexes, it chips away, and allows new molds to be created and new boundaries to become set up as you let all your colleagues know this is how far you can go and no further. 3. Give a reason. So a classic 1978 study that most psychologists will be familiar with is by a Harvard psychologist, Ellen Langer, and her colleagues. This looked at issues when people would line up to use the office photocopier. They found that whenever somebody just asked, could they cut in line, a simple yes or no question, they were generally told no and had to take their place at the back of the line. As most of you are thinking right now, rightly so. However, if they gave a reason, can I cut in? I need to make some copies. People were much more likely to let them through. The reason itself was obviously inane, as that was what everyone was waiting for and lining up to do. However, it was enough. People just didn't want to have to argue with it, as there's a greater psychological load to constructing, formulating, and countermanding their request. Hence, they just accepted it and let them in. Now, the trick though is to keep your requests short. When you can give a brief statement of why your request matters, people assume you've really thought it through. For example, why do you need the day off? I have a personal engagement that I need to attend to. Can you feel the pressure to come up with a counter-argument? If you ramble, extend, bloviate your reasons, then the request is likely to seem scattered, not well thought out, and usually dismissed or confronted. Specifically, when being assertive with a manager, understand that part of their job is to be the gatekeeper on resources and the arbiters of requests. What that means practically is that they are used to you and your team asking for stuff, making a calculation and then deciding. Therefore, there is no harm in asking. They're used to it, and it's in their job description. Even bad managers that are prone to saying no to everything, and it's their road or the highway style of management, once that they see that you also have red lines and guard your own resources, you may find that there is truth in the old adage, people respect those that respect themselves. Therefore, let your colleagues know clearly what you want. You'll be surprised how much more appreciative they'll be in the long term, and in the short term, more open to your requests. Number 4, mindset. Think through what you're going to say and calm yourself before speaking. What you have to say has value, even if we cynically believe it only to oneself. So approach every encounter with this in mind. Note, if you really don't think you have anything of value to contribute, understand that that little monkey is mischievously running amok in your head. And I'll refer you back to the previous pod again. A key component is to keep a problem-solving mindset. If you approach assertively stating your requests without negative spin that colors your interaction, and viewing it as a puzzle to be solved with a friend or a colleague rather than dealing with some conjured-up enemy, the result will be a calmer, more assured delivery and better outcomes. Now, I can't stress this enough. Avoid guilt trips. Be honest. Tell others how you feel and what you want without making accusations or making them feel guilty. Once you start tickling their amygdala, the feeling center, rational thought is on the way out, and that emotional mudslinging is about to begin. Aim for receptive, open communication. Listen actively. This will enable you to understand the other person's point of view, and don't interrupt when they are explaining their side of it to you. Criticism and critique. Know that given time to process this can be helpful and an opportunity to learn, grow, and also challenge once reflected upon. A defensive mindset is one prone to fixed thinking, brittle at the slightest critique, and not conducive to growth and learning. Alternatively, a growth mindset is one that allows for differing opinions and criticism. However, this is coupled with strong principles and boundaries that act as a check when they are crossed or violated, and therefore should activate your assertive self to put an alternative point of view. So, much better to foster a growth mindset. Now, take responsibility for your own problems. Understand that your problems are your responsibility. If you see something that needs changing in your life, take action. If you're not happy with something in your life, start taking steps, however small, to change things. Don't expect people to read your mind. If you want to say something, if something bothers you, speak up. Never assume that people know every need or want. It's not as obvious as you may think. Understand, you're not in charge of how others feel or behave. Both passive and aggressive people share similar problems. They both think they're in charge of how others feel or behave. They just go about it differently. An assertive person recognizes that it's not their job to control or worry about other people's behavior, and that you are responsible only for how you behave and feel. You won't believe how much less stress and anxiety you'll feel once you understand this. You'll no longer spend hours wringing your hands, worrying about whether someone will be happy with your choice or opinion. Now look, this isn't to say that you shouldn't be some sort of inconsiderate heel and shouldn't take into account the feelings, situations of others. It just means you don't need to go overboard and be so overly considerate that you don't make any requests or stand up for your values lest you upset someone or offend them. Let them decide whether to be upset or offended. That's their responsibility, not yours. So, let's swim in the deep waters. We have to be willing to become uncomfortable by choosing courage over fitting in. A terrifying prospect for those enslaved, always trying to gain the good opinion of others. However, work on it a little bit each day, and like any skill, it becomes easier over time. Number 5, communication jujitsu. A strategic pause. A pause, like this one, when completed effectively, gives meaning to your words. You are able to create emphasis of key words by either pausing either just before or just after that word. And this emphatic note helps them better to convey the exact meaning they intend. You become specific, and people cannot help but listen when you command your language in this way. Confident, clear, controlled. Now we're talking about language here. So, how do you sound confident? Well, firstly, you go back one step and you believe in your own value. So this is the mindset. And once you inhabit that space, once you believe intrinsically in your own value, what tends to happen is subconsciously, your tone and pitch tends to go up, the intonation becomes clearer. You say things more assertively, and that then pricks up the ears of your listener to understand that, oh, maybe I should pay attention here. They're saying something of value and of significance. So how to sound clear? So that usually starts with removing as much as possible of the preamble, those delaying tactics where you meander down the road of that conversation, prevaricating because you're a little bit scared, a little bit afraid of asking what you came to ask or to challenge what you want to challenge. So it usually gets to a point where your colleague will usually go, "What are you saying to me?" And that's usually a cue that you've literally been meandering down that road too long. The other thing to sound clear is to remove those hedging words. We mentioned it earlier, those non-committal words of sort of, might have, technically. These are little ticks that essentially, because you're not confident in what you're asking, you tend to put all these little qualifiers on before your actual ask. And then lastly, the passive fillers. As much as possible, we all have them. These are the ums, ahs, and the ones that we all try to remove as much as possible. And if our sentences are filled with these passive fillers, again, it can convey to the listener, okay, is this worth my time to continue listening? So sounding more controlled. So the first part is to keep calm and to convey your message in a calm manner. This leads back to mindset again, but it also goes a little bit further in which that you're keeping track of their mood, their body language and tone, and modulating it to match your audience when appropriate. It's a little harder skill to master, but when you start to understand that if you are matching that of your audience, they're more receptive to the words that are coming out of your mouth and the message you wish to convey. The next thing to think about is your use of I. So stick with statements that include I in them, such as I think or I feel. Remember, no one can dispute how you perceive the world. Don't use aggressive language such as you always or you never. Otherwise, backs go up, hearing closes down, and it's time to defend your honor because here comes the mud. Another very important point is to be honest with yourself and to others about mistakes that you've made and things that you could do differently moving forward. Look, admit it when you're wrong and apologize. Researchers have shown time and time again, if you prostrate yourself on the humble altar of acknowledging errors and making yourself vulnerable, this endears yourself to the listener, thus giving you credit in their bank and more scope to try things differently, more in line with your wants. As the colleague now has a data point saying that if you do muck up, you have the courage and the fortitude to own up to it, they're more likely to give you greater latitude in the future. Do not give in to yes. When the freeze moment happens, and it happens to all of us, and you hesitate to acquiesce to your colleague's request out of a deep internal knowledge that it's not what you want or crosses an internal boundary, I know you want to say yes. It's an easy result. But don't. Ask that you take some time to think about it, and you will get back to them soon. That way you have bought yourself some much needed time to plan how you would respond to the request without violating your boundaries and being respectful of theirs. Renegotiate. There are times when we knew we could have been more direct about our opinion. We feel that some of our boundaries have been violated by the decision made. Try to renegotiate. Talk to your counterpart if the renegotiation is possible. Even if the renegotiation does not work, at least you tried and have become more assertive than before, and this will reduce the inevitable flogging your monkey will give you. A simple formula to try when assertively pushing back on a request or demand is state clearly what action or request made to you that you take issue with. Now, this is just the facts. State it in terms of I feel or felt, those perceptions and interpretations of the event. State your reasoning. It helps to clarify the source of angst internally and, as mentioned before, helps direct action your way. And define your ask, what you need or want from your colleague to resolve and come to a good outcome. As you know, we don't always get what we want, so if your comments get ignored or interrupted, you can say a couple of phrases like this. Just a second, I'd like to finish my thought. Excuse me, I think we got off track. What I was saying was that, like I was saying before, and then you continue on. Using motion of either your hands or body positioning can trigger people's motion detector and makes them focus on you. This opens up a perfect window for you to say something. Also, by making a quick and audible inhale, people will notice that you've got something to say and focus on you, similar to motion. When you start to assert yourself more, people will become more aware of your presence and give you more space within the conversations. Understand that not all interruptions are made to belittle you. For example, in a lively group conversation, people interrupt each other all the time. And that's okay. And it has nothing to do with being disrespectful. If you do get angry, take time to cool down, collect your thoughts and reflect on what has been said and the situation in general before confronting the offender in the heat of the moment. An advanced technique, once you begin to master being more assertive, is not to yield the floor. It is something that you can build up to. However, it signals to other work colleagues, look, what everyone should be doing right now is actively listening to your point and not to find a way of interjecting themselves into the conversation. It is a power move, as usually the one with the least power gives way any time to another member of a group that is perceived superior. However, the way to reframe it in a less power struggle way is to see it as something that you wouldn't tolerate if a stranger butted in on a private conversation with your friends. Therefore, pick your battles and realize that if you missed an opportunity this time where you feel you should have done something differently, there's always another opportunity coming just around the corner. So finally, your last piece of Jujitsu, confident body language. Look, remember, it's not always what you say, but how you look saying it. Good eye contact when speaking and listening, good posture, no slouching or crossing your arms, Work with purpose, not wandering around aimlessly. Keep your chin up and eyes forward instead of down. Use hand gestures when speaking instead of keeping your hands shoved in your pockets. All these can convey in tandem with your words that you need to be listened to seriously. 6. Social interactions. Often overlooked are the social actions that you present to the world that help define how someone interacts with you. Some examples are the things that you laugh at, and sometimes more importantly, refuse to laugh at. The jokes that you make. A lot of self-deprecating humor or humor that puts other people down will not earn you respect. The places you go, actions you take, and events that you attend within the organization are a window into how maybe you interact in a more casual environment, not enclosed by the office space. And how you describe yourself, your work life, when someone asks, paints a new picture. The things you post on social media and the things you like and comment on are increasingly being used by companies to get another view of you. So just be aware this isn't being done in private, and it is being commented and viewed on within your organization. Work colleagues, like all people, are constantly updating their picture of you. Therefore, when next interacting with you, they will use this framework in verbal and non-verbal interactions with those social interactions in mind, thus making it harder or easier to be assertive. Be kind. Be firm. Be the work colleagues that others want to help or accommodate, rather than the one that through the lens of your past actions make it easier in their minds to dismiss or give less credence to what you want. 7. Practice makes perfect. Think, fantasize, create entire thought experiments of you actually saying what you want. Be detailed and be thorough. You'll be amazed how this sets a good foundation. Imagine yourself speaking up and then doing it in front of a mirror. Say it to yourself. Practice with a friend or a work colleague. Be bold. Try it on small things first before building it up to next more important things. Therefore, next time when someone asks you for a commitment of your valuable time in attending a meeting that you know will not be of benefit or a useful expression of your time, assert your will and say no. Role-playing assertiveness can go a long way in training oneself to be more assertive. As you can see, communication jujitsu is as much an art as it is a science. So go out and have fun with it. Practice. Come up with weird and wacky thought experiments. Visualize getting what you want. Understand that what you're doing right now is practicing working that assertive muscle so that when you actually need to use it next time in a workplace, it'll become a lot easier. The takeaway. Remember, it's your life, so be kind to yourself and ask for what you want. If you don't expect anyone else will. There is almost always reasons why people do the things that they do. It helps consider the other person's situation. What could have made them act this way? Have they always been taking you for granted? Why would they ask such a request? The tips and tricks above are a good start. You won't get everything right the first, second, or even the fifth time. It's a process, like learning any new skill. At the beginning, it seemed impossible to conceive of reaching a point where being assertive was even an option. Through perseverance and giving it a go, that's a great start. Be patient. Being assertive is not always easy. And just keep at the forefront of your mind that this is an expression of what you want. Remember that sometimes you will do better at it than at other times. But you can always learn from your mistakes. So, either be the author of your own story, or allow someone else to write it for you. I know which option I prefer. So go out, have some fun, practice, and become more assertive in the workplace. Thanks for listening to me opine on how to be more assertive and confident in the workplace. Give me your thoughts and feedback on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever flavor of social media, and via the email links in the show notes below. I'm LJ, your host. Opine away. Here's my opinion. What's yours? In the upcoming episode of the Opine Motel, I'm leaving it open this week. Send me your questions and topics that you would like me to answer, and I'll try my best to give a semi-coherent opinion. good listeners. In a announcement of self-indulgence, please, if you've found anything of value, please subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast listening service and write a review if the need should take you. If anything has affected you in a more serious way, I highly recommend my psychological professionals in your area to explore and delve into making you live your best life. Be well. See you next time. I look forward to your company then. Thank you very much for listening. I'm LJ, your host. This has been the Opine Motel podcast. Music credits go out to the intro, Fluffy by Smith and Mister, interlude sounds by Sephiros, and to see us out, Happy Life by Freya. Be well, everyone. See you soon.